All right, so now moving on to our next question. Which governance model possesses the strongest mandatory transparency rules for high risk AI? That is European Union. Which model sees AI as a partial solution to bureaucratic inefficiency and administrative overload? The answer is India. Which political culture shapes China's view that technology should maintain social harmony? That is Confucianism. Confucian political philosophy prioritizes hierarchy, moral order, harmony, and social unity in a nation, which deeply shapes the conception of AI ethics in China. Technology should support the collective, maintain order, prevent chaos, and preserve moral norms. Modern Chinese governance blends Confucian stability with party ideology. Now, which governance model sees individual rights as the central unit of AI protection? That is European Union. Which system experiences the strongest conflict between innovation ecosystems and regulatory safeguards? Answer is European Union. So, a strongest conflict between innovation ecosystems and regulatory safeguards. European companies frequently claim that European Union's stringent rules like documentation, risk assessments, audits, compliance bodies, and penalties make innovation slower and costlier. The European Union's high regulatory burden creates tensions between protecting fundamental rights and keeping European AI globally competitive. Now, moving on, which governance model uses AI to monitor local government officials' performance? So, the answer is China. China basically employs extensive data systems to assess local administrative performance, public sentiment, and policy compliance. Which model treats AI as an extension of geopolitical strategy and global power competition? The answer is US. So, US AI policymaking is deeply influenced by the strategic rivalry it has with China. AI is framed as essential to military dominance, cyber capabilities, chip manufacturing, leadership, and technological superiority. This geopolitical framing drives investment, export controls, and national security initiatives. Now, which system explicitly restricts indiscriminate biometric surveillance by public authorities? So, the answer to this is EU. It bans indiscriminate biometric surveillance like facial recognition, biometric surveillance in public spaces, except in narrow, tightly controlled exceptions, like in case of terrorist organizations, you know, taking over, or in case a person is missing, right, kidnapping cases, etc. This aligns with European privacy traditions and the Charter of Fundamental Rights. Which governance model has the highest use of AI in financial credit scoring and pricing algorithms? The answer is China. China's digital economy, especially platforms like Alibaba's Sesame Credit, integrates AI into financial scoring, risk analysis, consumer profiling, and pricing. Though some systems are private, the ecosystem is highly AI driven and partially overseen by state regulators. Which system uses AI ethics guidelines as non-binding moral frameworks instead of enforceable law? The answer is US. US guidelines from NIST and White House are influential but remain optional. They outline best practices, fairness norms, bias mitigation, and human-centered design, but do not impose mandatory penalties for violations. So they are non-binding model frameworks instead of enforceable law. Which governance model requires AI training data to be lawfully obtained and consistent with socialist values? The answer is China. So China's 2023 generative AI regulations require training datasets to be sourced legally safe and aligned with political or ethical requirements. This blends legal compliance with ideological considerations. Which approach most clearly asks, can the public trust this AI? The answer is EU. So trustworthiness is actually a very core principle of the EU AI Act. The EU argues that public trust is essential for adoption, competitiveness, and societal acceptance. This trust is built through rights protection and transparency for each citizen. Now, which governance model encourages open source data commons and shared public datasets? That is India. So India's DPI, Digital Public Infrastructure, and India AI, AI for All initiatives promote open public datasets, open source libraries, and shared architecture to encourage innovation and equal access. This aims to reduce dependency on global tech giants and lower entry barriers for startups. Which country uses the concept of algorithmic filing, where companies must register details of algorithms with regulators? The answer is China. China requires companies to submit details of recommendation algorithms to the CSE, that is Cyberspace Administration of China, including logic, training data sources, safety mechanisms. No other system mandates such deep regulatory visibility. In US, who fills the regulatory gap left by Congress? So that is independent courts and federal agencies. Which governance model places the greatest emphasis on safety testing, red teaming, and evaluation benchmarks? The answer is US. US executive order mandates extensive safety testing for frontier models, including adversarial testing, cybersecurity evaluations, and red teaming. Defense and national security agencies maintain deep involvement in evaluating these standards. Which system directly connects AI governance with democratic backsliding and the rise of authoritarianism? That is European Union. Moving on, which governance model most clearly seeks to prevent foreign technological domination? That is China. China's self-reliance in science and technology doctrine frames AI as crucial to resisting Western dependency. The state invests heavily in domestic chip manufacturing, cloud infrastructure, and algorithmic innovation to reduce reliance on US firms. Which system treats AI as a tool to improve delivery of welfare schemes at enormous scale? The answer is India. And the 100th MCQ is, which governance model sees freedom of expression as a crucial boundary when designing AI rules? Answer is US. In US, the First Amendment constrains how much the government can regulate AI-generated speech. Many regulatory proposals fail because courts protect broad expressive rights, even for synthetic content. This makes the US regulatory landscape uniquely permissive in speech contexts. Now, which governance model most explicitly warns about AI-fueled political polarization as a systemic democratic threat? So it is European Union. It considers AI-driven micro-targeting, misinformation, and political manipulation as fundamental risks to democratic institutions. Through the AI Act, GDPR, and DSA, Europe repeatedly emphasizes the existential challenge posed by algorithmic amplification of divisive content. Its governance model views democracy not merely as a political system, but as a foundational value, requiring active technological protection. Therefore, preventing AI-induced polarization is central to European regulation, unlike the US, where free speech constraints limit comparable interventions, and China, which frames similar issues primarily as threats to social stability but not democracy. Moving on to our next MCQ. Which model relies most heavily on regulatory sandboxes for AI experimentation? The answer is India. India's AI strategy emphasizes innovation friendly regulation. Regulatory sandboxes allow startups, researchers, and public sector bodies to test AI applications in controlled environments before hard rules are applied. This reflects India's need to simulate innovation while managing risks in sectors like finance, health, agriculture, and education. Europe also uses sandboxes, but India's reliance is more central because it compensates for limited regulatory capacity and supports inclusive digital experimentation. Which system defines high risk AI primarily through function plus context, that is European Union? So EU AI Act defines risk based not just on what AI does, but where and how it is deployed. For example, the same facial recognition system may be minimal risk in unlocking a phone, but high risk in a public surveillance application. This dual dimension model, function and context, reflects a sophisticated ethical framework grounded in fundamental rights and proportionality. Which governance system most systematically uses AI to optimize policing, surveillance, and real time public security? The answer is China. China integrates AI deeply into public security functions like predictive policing, surveillance networks, traffic and crowd monitoring, and early warning systems. These tools are justified under the narrative of stability preservation. While other countries use AI in policing, China's scale, centralization, and mandatory corporate compliance make the ecosystem of China uniquely comprehensive. Now, which model frames AI as contributor to increasing productivity in advanced manufacturing? That is China again. Moving on, which region's governance model includes algorithmic content moderation transparency reports mandated by law is European Union. Which system most clearly views AI regulation as a tool to reshape global AI geopolitics? The answer is again European Union. So it uses regulation strategically to define global norms. This is known as the Brussels effect. Its legal standards shape global industry behavior far beyond Europe's borders. So the AI Act is part of this geopolitical project to project European values into global AI governance, compensating for Europe's lack of corporate AI giants. Which model connects AI governance directly to digital sovereignty? That is the European Union again. Which country has the strongest federal incentives for AI defense applications? That is US. Defense institutions like DARPA, the Pentagon, NSA fund massive AI research directly tied to military and intelligence operations. The US views AI as essential for maintaining technological superiority in great power competition. Moving on. So, which system sees AI safety primarily through lens of national level catastrophic risks? So, US discourse emphasizes frontier model risks, existential dangers, and catastrophic outcomes. This is reflected in the White House executive order requiring safety testing, red teaming, biosecurity screening, and oversight of large foundation models. Which governance system most heavily restricts generative AI on political grounds? China. China forbids generative AI from producing politically sensitive content. Models must conform to socialist values, avoid historical nihilism, and prevent politically harmful narratives. They are not purely ethical restrictions, they are explicit ideological controls. Which model is the most legalistic, built on formal compliance and enforcement procedures? The answer is European Union. Which model can compel companies to disclose internal algorithmic working to regulators? The answer is China. China requires algorithm filing with the CSE, where companies must disclose their algorithmic logic, training data, safety measures, and intended use cases. No Western governance model mandates this level of internal transparency. Now, which governance model places the strongest legal restrictions on biometric categorization? That is European Union. It forbids biometric categorization for sensitive characteristics and emotion recognition or predictive policing in law enforcement workplaces and schools, which aligns with human dignity and anti-discrimination principles embedded in European law. Now, which system views AI as national development accelerator for poverty reduction and rural inclusion? That is India. Now, which model sees private sector companies as extensions of state governance with embedded party committees? So that is China. And which governance model is most resistant to regulating AI generated speech due to constitutional protections? That is US. And also, which system mandates human oversight as a non negotiable requirement for high risk AI? That is European Union.